Have you ever felt, I don't know, just completely, utterly overwhelmed by this sheer pressure to figure out your quote-unquote purpose in the world?
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
Right, like there's this invisible societal clock constantly ticking down. And, if you don't find that one grand meaning for your existence, you're somehow just failing at the whole concept of being alive.
Yeah, it's like an existential trap.
Exactly. We see it everywhere, like
Yeah.
the mandate to build a legacy or monetize your passion or curate this perfectly happy Instagram-ready existence.
Which is exhausting. I mean, we treat meaning as this commodity that we have to acquire or some destination we have to reach, and it just leaves everyone permanently burnt out.
It really does.
Yeah.
But today's deep dive aims to completely dismantle that entire framework, which I'm so excited about.
Same here. It's such a refreshing perspective.
So we are unpacking a set of really fascinating research notes today. The title is, What is the Meaning of Living? A phenomenological perspective centered on the present moment.
Quite a mouthful, but the concepts are just incredible.
Yeah, and the approach this source takes is so great because it entirely bypasses the usual suspects. Like, you won't find any theological arguments here.
Right, no religious angles.
No moral imperatives, no life hacks for, like, optimizing your career, and definitely no secrets to everlasting bliss. It just strips everything back to the absolute baseline of reality.
It takes a purely phenomenological approach.
Yeah. And for those of you listening who might be, a little rusty on your philosophy, phenomenology is basically, well, it's the study of the structures of experience and consciousness from the first-person perspective.
Right, it's asking us to just suspend all our preconceived theories and just look at the raw, unedited data of what it actually feels like to experience things.
Exactly. And by using that specific lens, the text challenges our deepest, most ingrained assumptions. It draws this really definitive, uncompromising line between two things that we constantly mix up in everyday conversation.
We do it all the time.
We do. It separates the meaning of living from
Yeah.
the meaning of your life.
And that distinction is everything. Because to even begin to understand the source material, we first have to sort of deconstruct our societal obsession with goals.
Right, transitioning from what we assume meaning is to what this framework argues it mechanically is.
Yeah, because if you ask, just someone on the street to define the meaning of living, they'll hand you a target.
Oh, totally. Like becoming successful.
Becoming successful, finding a soulmate, creating a masterpiece, helping the vulnerable, all these external achievements.
But the text is ruthless in dismantling that assumption. It argues that building a career, nurturing relationships, seeking happiness, those are definitively not the meaning of living.
Right, not at all.
There are secondary meanings that emerge only after living has already been established. Those goals, they constitute the meaning of life.
Which is a huge paradigm shift.
It really is. Because the meaning of living, on the other hand, is defined purely as the intrinsic significance of being alive. It's the ongoing phenomenon where subjective experience just becomes possible.
The fact that there's an experience happening at all.
Yes. It's the very fact that you can see a color or hear a tone or feel a shift in temperature in the room, or even process an emotion.
And it really separates biological survival from experiential reality. Because, a simple organism might metabolize nutrients.
It's like a plant or a single-celled thing.
Right. But what we are talking about here is the specific condition that makes a subjective world possible in the first place. Without this phenomenon of living, there is no subjective universe at all.
None.
None of those other ambitions, career, family, legacy, they literally cannot exist without this fundamental baseline already operating.
I was actually trying to visualize this baseline when I was reading the notes, and it immediately made me think of a movie theater.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, think about sitting in the dark watching a film. You have the plot, the rising tension, the characters falling in love, fighting villains, the swelling soundtrack, all of that.
The whole cinematic experience.
Right. That entire unfolding narrative on the screen is the meaning of life. But the meaning of living is simply the projector in the back of the room turning on and throwing a beam of light onto a blank screen.
I love that analogy.
Because without that blinding white light from the projector, there is no movie. There is no plot to analyze at all.
And the light itself is completely indifferent to the genre of the film.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter if it's illuminating a comedy or a tragedy or a documentary. Its sole fundamental function is just to cast the image.
Okay, but wait. I do have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
Because if a projector's just running in an empty theater, Or if there's no film loaded at all and it's just throwing a blinding white square on the wall, I mean, it's functionally useless, isn't it?
That's the natural objection, yeah.
Right. Does the mere phenomenon of living actually matter if nothing of substance is happening? Like, what about someone in a deep coma? The biological machinery is running, the heart is beating, but is the projector actually on? Where does this text draw the line on unconscious states?
What's fascinating here is how the text anticipates exactly this friction.
Oh, it does.
Yes, because we are so heavily conditioned to value the content of the movie, the drama and the action, that we dismiss the sheer mechanics of the light.
We just take it for granted.
Exactly. So to address your coma example, the text makes a really crucial distinction between mere biological metabolism and the true phenomenon of living.
Okay, how so?
If there is absolutely no subjective world occurring, like in a prolonged unconscious state, or even just a dreamless sleep, then the phenomenon of living, as defined in the specific phenomenological framework, is paused.
Oh, wow, paused.
Right. The biological organism survives, sure, but the subjective projector is off. The text argues that every single thing we assign value to, purpose, morality, achievement, even our perception of failure or deep suffering, all of it depends entirely upon that subjective experience actively running.
So the sheer fact that the projector is on and throwing any image at all is the strict prerequisite for value to even exist in the first place.
Precisely. The text states unequivocally that living gives rise to the present moment of subjective experience. That is the foundational, universal truth. Nothing more fundamental can be established before it.
Which means, and this is wild to think about for you listening to this right now, the mere act of you processing this audio or having a critical thought about my movie theater analogy.
Or just feeling the physical sensation of the ground beneath your feet.
Yes, in this exact fraction of a second, you are successfully fulfilling the meaning of living. The light is actively on.
It really establishes a radically different, almost alien metric for success compared to our modern standards.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more, because now that we've established that living is just this projector light of raw, subjective experience, we have to look at when that light is actually shining.
Right, the temporal aspect.
Yeah, the text gets very specific about its location and time.
Yeah.
It makes this incredibly uncompromising claim about how experience actually operates.
It really does. The framework states that the past exists entirely as memory, and the future exists entirely as anticipation.
Which is hard to swallow sometimes.
It is. But actual, tangible experience, that raw beam of projector light, exists exclusively in the present moment. Subjective experience is always happening now, to quote the analysis directly.
Always happening now.
Yeah, so it refines its core definition. Living is the continuous emergence of subjective experience in the present moment.
And this is where the framework creates massive cognitive friction for me.
How so?
Because our entire global society is architected around the future. I mean, think about it. We plan for retirement decades in advance.
Very true.
We spend Monday through Thursday just waiting for Friday. We endure grueling, unfulfilling work to secure some hypothetical promotion down the line. We are a chronically future-obsessed species.
Oh, without a doubt.
So how do we reconcile a society that fundamentally lives in tomorrow with a philosophical framework insisting that meaning only exists right now?
This raises an important question about the actual mechanics of human temporal perception. The text argues that our obsession with the future is essentially a cognitive illusion. Long before modern psychology came around, phenomenologists like Edmund Husserl mapped out how the now contains what he called pretension.
Pretension.
Yeah, pretension. It just means the built-in anticipation of the very next moment. Yeah. But the critical mechanism to understand here is that the act of anticipating is itself a present moment phenomenon.
Okay, but like when I am lying awake at 2 a.m., completely consumed by stress over a deadline next Tuesday, I mean, that stress feels like a very real collision with the future.
Oh, the physiological and psychological stress is incredibly real, but we have to look at the causality.
Right.
When you lie awake worrying about Tuesday, your accelerated heart rate, the tightening in your chest, the whole cascade of catastrophic thoughts, those are all neurological and sensory events occurring precisely at 2 a.m.
Oh, I see.
You are not visiting the future. Your brain is simply simulating a potential future scenario, and you are experiencing that simulation in the present moment.
So I am essentially experiencing a very specific, highly unpleasant flavor of the present. A flavor called dreading next Tuesday.
Exactly. And the same exact mechanism applies to the past.
Really?
Yeah. When you feel deep nostalgia for your childhood home or, visceral regret over a mistake you made last year, that memory is just a thought structure arising in your present subjective experience.
That makes so much sense.
The text points out that all of the future-oriented outcomes we chase, building a legacy, achieving social contribution, fulfilling our ultimate purpose, they fundamentally depend on this baseline, present moment experience continuously unfolding.
Because you can't get to the future without going through the present.
Right. You cannot reach a future goal without continuously passing through the turnstile of the present moment to get there.
Wow. That reframes things immensely.
Yeah.
It means that whenever you feel entirely disconnected or you find yourself lost in this paralyzing spiral of an anxiety about tomorrow, returning your attention to your immediate sensory reality isn't just like a basic psychological coping mechanism.
No, it's much deeper than that.
Right. Noticing the specific shade of a color in the room, or feeling the texture of your clothing, or focusing on the ambient sound outside your window. According to this framework, you are literally returning to the fundamental meaning of living.
You are anchoring yourself back to the only coordinate where living actually occurs.
Okay, so if living is just this blank, continuously emerging canvas of present moment experience, how exactly do we get from a raw sensation like seeing the color blue or hearing a loud noise to the really complex human phenomena?
Like society and art.
Yeah, like organizing a society, falling in love, or debating philosophy.
That naturally brings us to what the text outlines as the cognitive structure.
Right, the architecture.
It breaks down the architecture of meaning to show how literally everything else is built on top of that raw foundation. But instead of just listing the steps, let's look at how the machinery actually operates. The process moves sequentially. It starts at living, which generates subjective experience, which triggers cognition. Cognition then constructs the experiential world, leading to meaning, values, culture, and finally, the individual life.
That is quite the chain reaction.
It is. But the critical mechanism here is translation. The world we interact with is not merely a cold, physical universe of atoms and void. By definition, for us, it is an experienced reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When I was analyzing this chain of events in the notes, it struck me as incredibly similar to computer architecture.
Oh, I can see that. Tell me more.
Think of it like a machine translating raw code. If living is the physical hardware, right, then subjective experience is the raw, unformatted electricity flowing from the wall outlet into the motherboard.
Okay, I'm with you.
But raw electricity doesn't give you a word processor. It doesn't let you stream a video. It's just chaotic, unusable voltage.
Right, you need an interpreter, something to structure the chaos.
Exactly. You need an operating system. And in this phenomenological framework, cognition acts as the operating system. It takes the raw voltage of subjective experience and organizes it into software applications we can actually comprehend and interact with.
That is a brilliant way to phrase it.
Because concepts like love, science, art, tragedy, beauty, they aren't just out there in the physical universe waiting to be discovered under a rock. They are software programs running on the OS of human cognition, powered continuously by the electricity of living.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text makes a profound point regarding how active this OS really is.
Active, like it's doing work.
Yes. Cognition is not merely recognizing a prepackaged world that already exists independently of us. The operating system isn't just a passive monitor displaying a live feed from a security camera. It is rendering the graphics in real time.
Wow. Okay, let's trace that rendering process. Say the raw subjective experience is a sudden, sharp drop in physical temperature.
Okay, so the hardware detects the drop. The raw electricity flows. Then, cognition, the OS, interprets that sensation. It identifies the feeling as cold.
Right.
From that interpretation, an experiential world starts to take shape. The environment is suddenly perceived as hostile or uncomfortable.
Which then demands meaning. The meaning derived is that the body needs protection, and that meaning solidifies into values. So we start to value warmth, shelter, security.
Exactly. And those values ultimately build culture.
We invent architecture.
We weave clothing, we gather around fires, which leads to storytelling and community bonding. From a single raw drop in temperature, the cognitive machinery eventually renders the entire concept of a home.
It is a staggering cascade of causality. Every tragedy we endure, every intricate philosophy we debate, every metric of personal failure or success we measure ourselves against. Ultimately, it all arises from that sheer phenomenon of living being actively processed by our cognition.
The unfolding story of your life. The accumulation of your knowledge, the aging of your body, your triumphs, your defeats, is just the aftermath of this ongoing interaction between your sensory apparatus, your cognition, your environment, and time.
It's the software continuously generating data.
Exactly.
It is mind-bending to realize that the entirety of human history, with all its wars and art movements and technological leaps, is essentially just what happens when you leave that cognitive operating system running across billions of individual servers for a few 100,000 years.
It really puts things into a cosmic perspective.
It does. And this is exactly why the text demands we separate the meaning of living from the meaning of life. The meaning of living is just the electricity. Everything else, purpose, identity, society, is the rendered output.
The framework maps the architecture of our reality with incredible precision. But, as with all things, every comprehensive theory eventually hits a boundary.
Oh, for sure.
And what makes this source material so compelling to me is its intellectual honesty. It doesn't pretend to have a unified theory of everything.
No, it really doesn't.
It deliberately walks right up to a massive philosophical wall, points at it, and just absolutely refuses to cross.
Right. It asks one final irreducible question. Where does the phenomenon of living itself come from?
The ultimate question.
Because we've established the mechanics, we know living powers experience, which feeds cognition, which builds the world. But who plugged in the hardware? Why is there electricity in the universe in the first place?
And the text explicitly declines to offer a mechanism for this. It states very clearly that this analysis begins only after living is already occurring.
So it's skipping the origin story.
Exactly. It is designed to describe the structure of experience, not the origin of existence.
It separates the how from the why. And in doing so, it introduces this concept from the Japanese philosopher Hitoshi Nagai, the notion of the irreducible I.
A fascinating concept.
It really is.
Yeah.
This is one of those concepts that, once you really lock onto it, completely destabilizes how you view yourself.
Because it addresses the ultimate mystery of the first-person perspective. I mean, we have sciences that can map the human genome, chart the evolutionary flow of cognition, and track the sociological development of entire cultures.
Right.
But none of those empirical disciplines can explain why you are the specific entity looking out from behind your specific eyes.
It's the ultimate localized mystery. I mean, why aren't you experiencing the world from the perspective of someone sitting in a cafe in Tokyo right now?
Or a historical figure 300 years ago.
Yes. In a purely physical universe governed by biological laws, why is this specific point of consciousness anchored in this specific physical body, experiencing this exact slice of time? Why are you?
It borders on solipsism if you aren't careful.
It does. But Nagai's point isn't that you are the only mind in the world. It's rather that the unique centeredness of your specific mind is completely inexplicable by science.
It is inexplicably arbitrary, and the text's refusal to solve this is, I think, a profound act of philosophical humility. It acknowledges that the mechanics of the irreducible I belong to a completely different epistemological domain. Whether neuroscience or quantum physics or advanced philosophy will ever decode why the first-person perspective exists. It just remains unknown.
We just don't have the tools yet.
Right. So for the purposes of this specific framework, living itself must be treated as an axiomatic given.
We just have to accept that the projector is on and the light is shining without demanding to see the architectural blueprints of the theater or
Right.
the manufacture of the bulb. We can understand the structure of the light without needing to know its absolute origin.
Exactly. We have covered an immense amount of phenomenological ground here, but the synthesis of these concepts is remarkably cohesive.
It is. So let's bring it all together.
Good idea.
The meaning of living is not acquiring wealth. It is not finding happiness, adhering to a moral code, or making a grand social contribution. Those are the meanings of life.
They belong strictly to your unfolding narrative.
Exactly. The only universal structural statement we can make about living itself is this. It is the continuous emergence of subjective experience in the present moment. Everything else you care about is just the resulting consequence of that single phenomenon interacting with your brain, your environment, and time.
Living is the raw material from which all secondary meanings are manufactured.
So what does this all mean? For you, the listener, navigating a culture that constantly demands you prove your worth, optimize your time, and define your ultimate purpose, I think this framework offers a profound, almost radical sense of relief.
It acts as a powerful antidote to the pressure of the narrative.
Because under the mechanics of this philosophy, you cannot fail at the meaning of living.
It's structurally impossible.
It is. It is structurally impossible to fail as long as you are conscious. You don't need a promotion to achieve it. You don't need to be in a flawless relationship or exist in a state of perpetual happiness or leave behind a legacy that outlasts you.
None of that is required.
As long as you are experiencing this exact present moment, even if that moment is currently messy or mundane or painful, you have already achieved the fundamental meaning of living. The light is shining. The electricity is flowing. You are doing it.
It requires a radical acceptance of the baseline mechanics of existence. But, if we follow the logic of separating living from life to its absolute extreme, it leaves us with a highly provocative, perhaps even jarring thought to consider.
Oh, what's the ultimate implication here?
Well, if the meaning of living is entirely separate from the meaning of life, and living is defined merely as the ongoing phenomenon of subjective experience, does that mean a completely wasted life is fundamentally just as successful at living as a historically significant one?
Oh, wow.
Right. If someone spends 80 years doing absolutely nothing of societal value, but they continuously experience the present moment, they perfectly fulfilled the meaning of living just as much as a great scientist or a revered leader.
That is jarring to think about.
And if the baseline of existence doesn't differentiate between a masterpiece and a blank wall, why do we fight so desperately hard to convince ourselves that the plot of the movie is the only thing that matters?